Hi, Year 13. This is going to be just a really quick recap of evaluation and evaluative skills. Um, shouldn't last more than 5 to 10 minutes, I wouldn't think, but it's a skill that we just need to recap to make sure that you are using in your upcoming mocks and your exams. So, the real exam. So, evaluation. I want to just recap on this again. This is something called Bloom's taxonomy, and these are your skill sets. So whenever I'm asking you to do things in class, your marking criteria from the IB, it's often based around the skill sets. And if you look at it, evaluate is at pretty much near the top. Analyze is a lower level skill than evaluation. So I think we ask you all the time in English to analyze and evaluate, sometimes without explaining what it means. Obviously, we've gone through this a lot in class, but I do want to just recap because I think you're going to have so many things going through your mind, approaching the unseen, that I need to make sure that you're still remembering this skill set in particular. So, evaluation is, as I've just said, one of the higher level skills for you to master. By reaching a stage where you can convincingly evaluate a text, you're also therefore showing a personal response. So this is what I'm really pushing you to do. Same with your HLSAs, same with the IOC. If we look at the marking criteria, so criterion B, it literally says it within the criteria, analysis and evaluation. That therefore tells you straight away that you've got to do it for this criterion. Now, if you look at the language of 1 to 5, on from 1 to 3, the word evaluate isn't actually in there. So if we look at 3 out of 5, the response demonstrates generally appropriate analysis of textual features and or authorial choices. So it's fine, but to get the highest level marks, you have to be evaluating. So if we look at levels 4 and levels 5, this is where the word evaluation starts to come in. Now, the only nuance difference between the two is that for a 4 out of 5, it's good evaluation, and for 5 out of 5, there's very good evaluation. Obviously, that's just a very nuanced difference. So what I just want to make sure is that you are aiming for these 2 top boxes with the evaluative comments. So to evaluate, how do you actually effectively evaluate a piece within your response? So firstly, I think just need to recap on what some evaluative words are. So evaluation is essentially saying whether you think something is successful or not. And I would say for the most part, what we need to do is be breaking down which one of these is the most appropriate for the paper that you're doing. So what do we feel is going to be the most suitable when being critically evaluative of a piece? What I tend to say is that unless there's a comparative study, so unless you were comparing 2 poems or comparing 2 prose texts, which you won't be for paper 1, it's okay to look at the more negative evaluative statements, because you could say that one text is a little bit more flawed in presenting the message than the other text is. But I would say for just looking at one text, you stick with the positive evaluative statements. Just because you're going to make it more difficult for yourself to go into the exam and say that something is not effective. You can do that by all means, but I would say, you are going to be analysing something from a published author, probably chosen because it's got credibility. So I would say to err on the side of being positive in your evaluations. So I just want to go through some evaluative sentences. So some evaluative sentences that you can be using. For example, the author's utilisation of anagnosis innovatively suggests that. So when you've got in there, you've got your terminology, but you're also embedding that language that shows that you're evaluating and you're being critical about the piece, you're personally engaging with the piece. This successful application of a detached third-person narrative perspective demonstrates that. And with these sentences, realistically, you could memorize some of these if you felt like you were going to struggle in the exam, and you could remove, anagnosis from this and just place in whatever piece of, terminology that you get when you're in there. Orwell's use Orwell's implementation of a semantic field of brutality is powerful in delivering his message. This carefully crafted dialogue between the two characters is successful at demonstrating that. Obviously, this analysis that I'm showing you is based on the prose element. It would be slightly different in poetry, potentially. So I just want to look very quickly at what the evaluative words are here. So we've got innovatively, successful, powerful, carefully, and successful. So this bottom one, you've got a double whammy. You're consistently evaluating throughout the sentence. Now, if you find it too hard to embed within your sentence, you can do it. You can do it at the end of your paragraph. You're just presenting a more developed skill set to be able to embed it, and it just shows that little bit more personal engagement. If you can't do that and you feel like you would struggle to do that, then you can sum it up at the end. It would be more preferable to embed, but you can do it at the end. But it's just making sure that those evaluations are meaningful and worthwhile. So a suggested activity just for revision and to get practicing is that you can go to one of your previous class assessments, pick out a paragraph you feel is the weakest, practice rewriting it and try embedding evaluative statements within to boost it within the marking criteria. Part of your revision as well, I would write down as many positive evaluative words or phrases that you can so that you'll remember them when you're writing your sentences in the exam.